Pro Cannabis Media Programming and PCM TV is supported by Revolutionary Clinics, Massachusetts' #1 medical dispensary where the patient comes first, and by Salient Systems for Video Surveillance. You've got regulations, Salient has solutions for your security needs. And by Accounting Buds, your #1 CPA specialist for the cannabis industry. And by Artery Pay, easy, cheap, fun, and legal, just like cannabis should be. Well, happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Green Rush Live. I'm Jimmy Young, the host of this show, and I bet you're probably already saying, what happened to the co-host, David Rabinovitz? Well, first of all, we want to wish him well. He was feeling under the weather, and I understand now he's home, resting comfortably. That's all I care about, and I certainly hope he'll get his chicken soup and rest, because that's the most important thing when you don't feel good. I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media. We have a great show over the next couple of hours for you. In fact, a very special guest is coming on in an hour. His name is Michael Thompson. And if anybody has followed his story out of Michigan, you know that this is the guy that was incarcerated for 25 years for selling cannabis and is finally released and home. It's an amazing story. He'll tell it to us here in about an hour from now. But right now, I am joined by April Arrasate. She is the CEO of SEED. It is an adult use dispensary in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts. And April, thank you so much for joining us. And may I say, it's great to see you without a mask.
Oh, I know, right? How you doing, Jimmy?
I'm doing fine. And one of the reasons why I'm really happy that you're on with us today, and especially in our featured 4 o'clock interview, is because we are going to be talking about prison reform in the cannabis world. And I know that has always been part of one of your missions, and it obviously is a part of the story that a mutual friend of ours tells all the time. And I'm talking about Naimbi McIntosh, obviously. April, first of all, tell us about how it's going there. I know you've only been opened a few months, but how is it going in Jamaica Plain with your dispensary?
It's going great. We see more people coming through the door every day. So we just want to get as many people into the space as possible. As you know, and you alluded to, we have the dispensary with the menu getting bigger and bigger, and it's just so many more exciting products coming into Massachusetts right now. So it's kind of fun. We're getting ice cream in. We just got a whole bunch of seltzers and all that kind of fun new products that are launching in mass. But we also have the Social Justice Cannabis Museum, and we actually just got our separate zoning from the city because it's its own entity. It's a nonprofit. So now we're going to start doing seminars and all kinds of good things in that space. So
wow, that's great. And it really does kind of lend us into a discussion about prison reform. As you know, there is this initiative going on around the United States of America towards expungement of records, especially in legal states. I mean, does it make sense to anybody who's a clear thinking individual that people who are still incarcerated for cannabis possession crimes or the sale of now a legal substance, perhaps at a very, let's say, a personal or consumer basis as opposed to pounds and pounds, they really shouldn't be in jail anymore? And I just wonder if we let out all these people that are in jail, that have been incarcerated after this failed war on drugs, how are we going to get them back into the workforce? And that is really what I preach about a lot. I want to know what you guys do and how passionate you are about creating programs that get people that have been behind bars acclimated to the real world and perhaps even an opportunity to get into the business with employment.
yeah, I mean, we talk about this a lot with the regulators and the policymakers and the city officials, state reps. But it's really it's one aspect of a really complicated problem. And for us, it almost goes one step backward, which is how do you get the people out to begin with, right? And that's the first sort of problem. And I think the priority, right? Because if you're behind bars, your number one concern is how to not be behind those bars anymore, right? And then you figure it out when you get there. But it's a complicated problem, and you can't just automatically, there's a mechanism for this in the state of Massachusetts. So if you are behind bars and suddenly it's not a crime anymore, you can go through, the machine basically and go through the criteria that you need to, but it requires resources to do this. Not everybody knows how to work the system like that. So you'd need, an attorney, you'd need resources to get that done. Then there's the problem that some people, or what stands in the way of sort of just complete release, is that some people have taken a plea. So they might have taken a lesser offense and be in for cannabis possession, but the charges were actually much more severe. And so there's an argument that maybe those people shouldn't be released. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh,
so it's very
totally.
complicated. Yeah. So it's super complicated. And I think reintegrating them is a great luxury. I would look forward to being able to, launch a program that does that. But I almost feel like we're not there yet because so many people are still behind bars.
It is incredible. And if you look at some of the statistics about people who were still arrested for minimal amounts of cannabis on their possession over the last 12 months, even in states like New Jersey that voted it in November, they still had quite a few thousand arrests between November and I believe it was January when the governor finally signed the law. So I know you have a legal background, correct? Are you still a practicing attorney?
I am an attorney. I'm still licensed in 2 states, but I don't really practice. I'm just very busy with everything else.
Fair enough. But I'm gonna throw a question at you because we are going to be talking about this topic in the next half hour with a doctor and a scientist, and it has to do with this Delta 8 THC and Delta 9 THC. I've done a lot of research preparing for this interview and talking to people, and it was totally confusing to me. But the bottom line here is one of those deltas, they're actually able to inject or increase the amount of THC that's in it so that it's being derived from hemp. So again, why are people putting a non-organic or something you can grow in the ground into a plant to get high? I don't understand the concept here. Is it cheaper to manufacture Delta 8 THC? Is that the answer? Because I know everything always ends up boiling down to the almighty dollar.
Yeah, and we're not on I'm not on the manufacturing side of it anymore, but I'm sure there are cost issues associated with it. I mean, money is everything. That's the problem with the prison system. That's the problem with any industry there is, right? But I think that the ultimate, what's happening is people are always trying to skirt the definition of hemp, right? Which is the 0.03% THC.
Right. So by the way, is it 0.03% or is it 0.3%?
0.03%.
Okay, because that's not what you hear a lot of. You know what I'm saying? I see it in print 0.3%, and I'm like, that isn't right. So
yeah.
Go on, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think that the overarching drive is to find a way to skirt that and create and make hemp that can get you
high.
Yeah.
You get the high effect that THC offers, and a lot of people are certainly comfortable using it in a responsible manner these days. And it's one of the reasons why you have a licensed facility in Jamaica Plain. You open your doors and you're selling that legally under those wonderful regulations. And I know how you have to be compliant with all those regulations. How big of a challenge is it for you as a business owner to make sure that everything you do is in compliance with what you're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge is that it's relatively new still, and everybody is always catching up, and you're coming up with new problems. And I mean, I think my favorite compliance story that sort of sums up compliance in general in cannabis. When I was starting a cultivation and manufacturing almost, I guess, 10 years ago, or it had to be less than that, 2013, I guess.
2013.
We said, hey, how do we get the genetics here, right? We're not supposed to cross state lines. We're asking the state, what do you want us to do? We don't want to break the law. We're like, whatever. And they just pretty much literally went like this. And they called it the white elephant migration. So it's the white elephant in the room. Everybody knows it's an issue, but it's just like, we don't want to know.
Actually, I've heard a lot of law enforcement people doing that same thing right now, because they know that if they bring people in, the DA's office, they don't want to prosecute cannabis crimes anymore.
Yeah. Well, but the problem is, and we touch upon this a lot in the museum, because I really tried to dive into the numbers of why.
Oh, we may be having Wi-Fi challenges with April. We seem to have lost audio with April. I know she's talking because I can see her lips moving, but we don't hear her. Oh, wait, I heard her laugh. Are you there? Yeah, you're back. Okay.
Sorry.
It's one of those Wi-Fi things. We get it. I understand it.
The NSA.
Wait, are you saying that Big Brother knows exactly where we are, what we're doing all the time?
Come on, Jimmy. I think you know that.
Yeah, I get you. I'm sorry. So about half your answer did not get shared. If you'd like to recap, that's fine.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really try to dive into the numbers a lot in the museum to understand why we are in this position. And there's a lot of misinformation, just like in cannabis, there's a lot of misinformation in prison reform. Like, for example, what I found in my research is that, everybody complains about private prisons, and there was like Biden signed an executive order, that was, a little bit loosely worded anyway, but trying to end government contracts with private prisons. That's really only 9% of the prisons, and not really the big problem. One of the biggest problems is that people get arrested largely a lot of times for cannabis, little things like cannabis possession, like you're saying, and then they don't have the money to get out. So they're just sitting there waiting. Like if you got thrown into the drunk tank, you would just pay what it takes to get out and then deal with the legal parts of it. But $300 to get out, and then they're just there. And it's an insane part of our society.
There's quite a few insane parts.
No good for anyone.
Right. These days, it is pretty crazy. I do want to make sure that we have an opportunity to talk about the big event that's going to be in your backyard or behind your building on this Sunday upcoming, and we'll have to date it. I believe it's June 27th, this Sunday. We are live, but we do the show. Are you there? I know about the event, so I can certainly talk about it. It's actually part of the Pride movement.
Yes, so June 27th.
There you go. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Can you hear me?
I hear you. I got June 27th.
Yes, so we're having a Pride block. Okay, June 27th, Sunday, June 27th, we're having a block party. Can you hear me?
What are the hours of that?
Can you hear me, Jimmy?
Yes, I can. I'm just looking to find out how many hours we have on that.
Yep, it's 12 to 8. We have live bands. We have a drag show at 5:30. There's a costume contest with prizes for first, second, and third. A kid zone, like a family fun zone, so it's family friendly, and also a 21 plus lounge. So there'll be vendors there giving stuff away, and it's just a celebration of Pride. We have a very strong LGBTQ community in our neighborhood. And so, like I said, it's the Hyde Square in Boston, the Jamaica Plain neighborhood, and it's super fun. So everybody needs to come and celebrate.
There you go. And
it's supposed to be hot.
It is supposed to be hot, so dress appropriately, make sure you hydrate, all those neat things. And the challenge to me, because I certainly know exactly where you guys are, is where do they park? I mean, that's going to be the biggest. If people are driving there, and I'm going to guess that
Yep.
urging Uber, Lyft, and any other kind of transportation, get somebody to drop you off and pick you up would probably be the best way to get people there. Yes?
Yes. Also, a lot of our neighbors have donated their parking lots for the day. So if you go on to seedyourhead.com, all of the information about parking will be there and the available lots. And it's also, you could take the train to the Jackson Square T-stop.
There you go. The Jackson Square T-stop, and of course, a couple of parking lots. Go onto their website and check it out. April, I apologize just because of the Wi-Fi issue. You are welcome on this show anytime to talk about what you do, because I have so much respect for your management style, the passion you have for the social injustices in this world. And of course, you have a great exhibit, and I urge everybody who watches this show on a somewhat regular basis to check it out if you are in the Massachusetts area. And if you're not, and you are going to visit soon, that's the dispensary you want to check out in Boston. How's that for a plug? Is that good?
Great. Thank you, Jimmy. I'm sorry about the Wi-Fi. I don't know what to do.
Well, we could talk about that after the fact, but in the meantime, have a great time on Sunday. We are going to try and cover it with one of our videographers, one of our videographers. Like, I've got a choice of more than one. Dan will be there, and I know we'll have coverage of it on our next news show, because since it's the 4th of July week coming up, like everybody in the world, I'm actually going to shut down production for 2 weeks and come back strong the week of July 12th. So thank you, April. Best of luck. Great to see you. Please say hello to everybody on your staff. And I know I'll come to visit you soon. Okay. All right, there you go. That was
Great.
April.
Thanks, Jimmy. Bye.
Thank you. And of course, I don't know if you got to hear, I'm going to reiterate again, the time to get to that event is the 5:30 the drag competition. It's going to be fun. They've got live bands. Let me see. I can tell you who they are. The Chops. I have no idea who that is. The Ray Liriano Experience, the Rick Berlin and Nickel and Dime Band. I love how they have a master of ceremonies, but they don't tell you who it is. By the way, I'm available. Not that Sunday, but in the future, I'm available to be the MC. I've done it before. And they've got the Intergalactic Space Alien, Vice Versatile, and DJ Ayo Biello. And I certainly hope I got that pronunciation right. In the meantime, we're getting closer and closer to the magical time of 4:20 on a Friday afternoon. That's when we take our first break on this show. And of course, we then talk a little bit about the origins of the 420 movement that started in San Rafael High School. A group of guys called the Waldos in 1971 used to get together at the statue of Louis Pasteur and catch a buzz. That was until law enforcement picked up on that, being the efficient people that they are for public safety, and started to use 420 as the code for public consumption of cannabis going on. Now, the extra story to that is one of the members of the Waldos was friends with a guy, pretty sure it was by the name of Phil Lesh, who's an original member of the Grateful Dead rock band, the legendary Grateful Dead. And the Dead, of course, started to publicize 420, and that got embraced by the Deadheads and the cannabis culture and all that neat stuff. And now, of course, it's been celebrated. It's part of, I don't know who owns the copyright to 420, but somebody does. I know that. And of course, now they have all sorts of celebrations on April 20th. And as we found out recently in the interview that Dave Briggs did with Calvin Johnson, the NFL Hall of Famer, that was always the day that the NFL tested for weed. Just saying, by coincidence, they would do that. Now, my version of 420, whenever we heard the song Shanty by Jonathan Edwards, he was a folk rocker in the 60s and 70s who grew up in New Hampshire, still performs on a somewhat, I don't want to say regular basis, because nobody performs on a regular basis over the last 18 months, but we do know that he made a stop in a radio studio in New Hampshire to play this version of Shanty. And of course, every time I used to hear the song Shanty, we used it as an excuse to go catch a buzz. In the meantime, we use it as a break on our show. The Green Rush Live will continue after this. Don't go away.
Yeah, this is a tune that I wrote back in I'd forgotten. We had a saying in our old band, one of my first bands in 1966 or so. What are you going to do tonight? Oh, just, like every other night, just going to lay around the shanty and put a good buzz on. Gonna sit down in the kitchen, fix me something good to eat. Make my head a little high, make the whole day complete. Gonna lay around the shanty, oh mama, and put a good buzz on. Pass it to me, baby, pass it to me slow. We'll take time out to smile a little before you let her go. We're gonna lay around the shanty, oh mama, and put a good buzz on. You're on something. Go ahead. Rick Brodsky, everybody. Nothing to do and there's always room for more. Fill it, light it, shut up and close that door, baby. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. Take it, okay. Prohibition never works, it's time to realize it. It grows in my backyard, it's time to legalize it. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. I'm gonna sit down in my rented car. I'm gonna jam it into drive. I'm gonna head on out and play at WSCA with Sean. I'm glad I'm alive. We're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on. Every night and day, we're gonna lay around the shanty, mama, and put a good buzz on.
Nice. It's Friday.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media. And when I started Pro Cannabis Media 2 years ago, I wanted to make sure the cannabis industry had a professional outlet to share their stories in their own words. Now, since it all started with my podcast In the Weeds 3 years ago, I've done over 250 interviews. I've met some incredible people with a shared passion for this amazing plant. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard the line, cannabis has saved my life, cannabis has changed my life. Well, now it's your turn. We want to give you a chance to tell your own story. It doesn't even need to be related to the medicinal power of this incredible plant. Just to give you a little incentive, we will pick 5 stories to share on our live Green Rush show on Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern. If we share your story, you automatically get one of our t-shirts with that closing line I use all the time, it's a whole new world of weed. But as the legendary Billy Mays used to say, That's not all. One of those finalists will win one of these really cool full-story cannabis storage units. It's a great way to store your cannabis in their food-grade aluminum containers. It's award-winning, child-proof, smell-proof, and has a solid contemporary design. It's a $220 value, but you can win one if we pick your story and feature it on our show. Yes, we will pick one of those 5 finalists, and they will receive this $220 value absolutely free. Now, we ask you to keep your story to under 90 seconds on video and less than 500 words in text. So come out of the cannabis closet and tell us your story, and you could win with yourstory.com. Just go on to procannabismedia.com and sign up today. You might even join us on one of our shows. Canna Clinic patient comes first, and by Salient Systems for Video Surveillance. You've got regulations, Salient has solutions for your security needs. And by Accounting Buds, your #1 CPA specialist for the cannabis industry. And by Artery Pay, easy, cheap, fun, and legal, just like cannabis should be. All right, welcome back to Friday afternoon's Green Rush Live program. I'm Jimmy Young with Pro Cannabis Media, and we are so happy to have 2 guests with us over the next 30 minutes. One is a regular to PCM TV viewers, if you will. It's Dr. Mary Clifton, the host of the Doctor's Lounge. Hi, Mary. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You are welcome anytime. And I'm going to say the same to Giancarlo Feula, because he is a scientist with MCR Labs, and he too joins us on a Friday afternoon. Giancarlo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me too, Jimmy.
Okay, so which one of you wants to define what Delta 8 THC is? Which one of you would like to give that a shot? You can raise your hand, or I could just call on you like a close. All right, let's let the scientist do it, and then we'll go to the doctor for a comment. Explain what Delta 8 THC is, Giancarlo.
Okay, well, to start it off, THC, the molecule we know, is actually considered Delta 9 THC.
Got it.
And they call it Delta 9 because of the location of a specific double bond on the molecule. And when a carbon and carbon chain has a double bond, it just makes it a little less flexible and a little more stiff and changes the way it interacts with things. So Delta 9 THC has a double bond in one place, and Delta 8 has it just switched over one position. And chemists like to number the carbons on a molecule. So one of them's on the 9 carbon, one of them's on the 8. And it very slightly changes the way the molecule can interact with things. So you see slightly different effects.
But forget the effects for a second. The Delta 8 is derived from hemp, is it not? Or am I misreading that?
It's derived from CBD and hemp. So some of it is isolated, which is a much more tedious process, but a lot of it is actually made chemically. So they do a chemical process on either Delta 9 THC extracted from cannabis or CBD extracted from hemp. And if you take a certain set of conditions on that molecule, you can actually turn it into Delta 8.
Okay. So there's got to be a reason why people are doing this. And I'm very skeptical, but I sometimes have some insight, and I always think it has something to do with money or the cost of it, right? Dr. Mary, can you talk a little bit about how THC interacts with our endocannabinoid system that's in all mammals? And of course, everybody recognizes that chemical as the one that gets you high. But now there's 2 different types, and I think that's the most confusing thing. Can you explain?
Yeah, I mean, the THC is the one intoxicating cannabinoid that we're able to use to get intoxicated. I mean, we're trying to get away from the psychoactive effect and talk about intoxicating and not intoxicating. And by the application of some acid washes to hemp or CBD, it can be converted, into this Delta 9. we know from things like testosterone and estrogen that making very subtle changes to a molecule can result in a very marked difference in the way that the molecule interacts with the receptors. And we know that THC interacts with the receptors in the body, particularly the receptors in the brain, to to get you high, to give you a buzz, to create that intoxication. But the delta 9, that double carbon bond is just flipped a little bit over to the neighboring carbon atoms. It's a very subtle change in the molecule, but it does still have the intoxicating effects of THC. And, THC just works with the CB1 and CB2 receptors that are naturally found throughout the body. But particularly, we see the effects with intoxication with the receptors in the brain, of course, where after administration, you get those receptors stimulated, and then you feel that buzzy, lightheaded feeling. But the D8 is interesting because and I'm actually in the process, Jimmy, of creating a series of videos to share with my audience on very, very early reports on how people are using D8 and what kind of side effects they may be having. And people are describing it as sort of a daytime high, or more of a clear-headed high, where if they have potentially like attention deficit disorder or an anxiety, but they work and they need to be focused at work and they can't really be too buzzed, the D8 is a nice alternative they're finding.
Well, it just so happens I have a vial right here of Delta 8 oil. Okay. And I'll be perfectly honest. Oh, wait. Did I use that one? No, I didn't use that one. I used this other one. It was straight CBD oil. I was going to say I took it right before the show because a certain brand, a very famous brand of CBD that I ordered for $100 for a bottle has not worked. Okay. Let's just say, and it did work once for me. So again, every person is different. It affects everybody differently, and every product is going to affect. That's the biggest challenge, I think, with anybody when it comes to a brand or a product in this space. It's like, try to describe the effect. Well, it's going to be different for you than it is for me, but this is what happened to me. Anyway, Giancarlo, I want to ask you, I just had April Arrasate on. She's the CEO of SEED. It's a great adult use dispensary in Jamaica Plain, in Massachusetts, in Boston. And clarifying again, hemp is supposed to only have 0.03% THC or 0.3% THC. You're the scientist. You test for it. Tell me the real answer.
I've heard both. The one that makes the most sense to me is 0.3. 0.3 would make the most sense, but don't quote me on that one.
I would have to agree that 0.3 makes the most sense.
Right. That's what I thought too. It was 0.3%. And then let's get into the fact that there is a big difference between 0.03%, obviously 100 times, than 0.3%. But I have learned, and Mary, you know this about me, I know just enough to be trouble. I get myself in trouble with the amount of knowledge I have, and I'm learning every day. And this is one of the reasons why I like doing this show and talking to people that are experts like you two, because I do learn. And the thing I learned very early was the entourage effect. The entourage effect, where that basically is you need a little THC in order to get the most value out of a CBD based product. Is that accurate, Mary?
Well, I think that's true of so many things that you're doing to your system. I mean, if it's so much better to eat a whole carrot than to juice a carrot and just drink the juice and then throw everything else away, because you're getting rid of some fiber. You're losing a lot by not taking the whole product. So I always think of a whole flower as opposed to an isolate, similar to taking a vitamin C tablet if you want some vitamin C, or taking a glass of orange juice, or just eating an orange. We would really recommend that you could eat the orange. And if you can stomach it, eat some of the orange peel, because the orange peel has some great anti-cancer effects. So when this is part of the reason why it's just so hard for doctors to understand cannabis, because there's 130 recognized cannabinoids. You're probably upwards of 300 to 500 different phytonutrients, and doctors are used to one molecule or maybe two molecules in a pill with some inert ingredients. So something that has 500 ingredients that are all interacting with your body is something that doctors and the FDA just really don't know how to deal with. But optimally, you keep all of those ingredients together, and presumably they're all working together to enhance each other and to do something more extraordinary than they would do alone.
Gotcha. That's kind of like how humans are too, in a lot of ways, right? You mentioned something that I learned very early from a guy by the name of John Dvorak. I love to give him credit for this. The difference between psychoactive and intoxicating, right? And I can't tell you how many times that former comrades in the media talk about CBD as a non-psychoactive component.
As non-psychoactive,
Right.
yeah, but clearly it has psychoactivity, because people who are anxious or who have, attention deficit find often that they can get improvement with using that therapy. So it's not really a non-psychoactive. So yeah, we're really trying to move away from that and talk about intoxicating versus non-intoxicating.
And you would think that everybody in the media would know what intoxication is. I'm just thinking that, not that I have any experience in that at all. Giancarlo, I want to go back to you a little bit and talk about the testing process. How can you put a number on the percentage of products that come into your lab at MCR Labs out in Framingham, unless you guys have moved? Have you moved? You haven't moved. You're back in.
Oh no, we're still on Speen Street.
Okay, good. On Speen Street, where the home of Young Broadcasters of America back in 2008 to 2012. I just want to say, that being said, what is the percentage of the passes versus fails of the products that come in? Is it 50-50? Is it 75-25? Or can you even put a percentage on it?
The most recent number I remember seeing is about 1/5 or a little less. I think I saw 17%, but it's not a small number, but it's also not an overwhelmingly large number. And
right.
these are
right. You would think that the people who need their product tested know what they've or how it's been grown, right? Because there's always those variants, right? That's the biggest challenge I know to growing is some, environmental factors, soil factors, water factors, too much site. There's so many different elements that can go into screwing up the growing of this plant. And it's another reason why I don't grow it. What's I know in Massachusetts specifically, they test for more contaminants and things than any other state. Is that accurate?
I believe that's with respect to microbiological contaminants. We test for very similar, like as far as the types of screens as the other states. And our limits for pesticides are also kind of a lot lower than the other states.
Right. And Dr. Mary, as a MD, don't you want to have the highest quality or the most testing of all these different things? Don't you expect that when you're dealing with a plant medicine?
Oh, I mean, ideally, yeah, I would love to see all of my products tested for insecticides and pesticides and heavy metals too, because the hemp plant, concentrates heavy metals. So especially when you're working with international sources, but there's plenty of soil contamination right here in the US too. So a measurement for heavy metals is also very reassuring, but we hold the hemp industry to very high standards with the testing. I mean, I would love to see the same kind of testing on everything that I eat and drink.
Absolutely. I'd like to know.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. It's really important. And it's also true, like as you say, Jimmy, there's a lot of different ways to change the structure, and not really the structure, but the components of the plant, with different levels of light or different levels of hydration, different CO2 levels, different temperatures. You kind of can create a different plant. And even from one end of a greenhouse to another, you'll see, significant changes. And the same is true of the food you're eating. I mean, I'm sure if you guys have a local farmer's market, you have somebody you love who has the best tomatoes and somebody else who has the best strawberries, because, they're growing them on the right side of the hill and getting the right amount of sunshine on them. So it's always a good idea to, identify a few brands that you love when you're trying to make a selection here, and make sure you get reputable growers, reputable production teams that you trust, and then, spend some time with those particular grows. Like, for example, a lot of people love gelato or wedding cake or Girl Scout cookie. And, you can go to a few different dispensaries, check it out, see if you can find one that really suits you, that's your favorite, and then you can stick with that grower.
Yeah. There's so many products out there right now. It is overwhelming. It really is. As someone, I've had a medical card since the inception of the program, and I think I know a lot about, like I said, I know enough to be, in trouble, dangerous. I still am experimenting with different strains and different combinations just to see which work. And I'm going through a phase right now where my arthritis is just horrific. I mean, I'm dropping things because I can't move my hands properly. And I have to go back to some of the products I was using before. I might add local products from the area seem to do better than the ones that are imported perhaps from Colorado that people might recognize. That there was a great children's book, okay, without naming the name and giving them a hard time, because I do know it works for some people. But let's just say there was a children's book that was named after this brand, or the vice versa, if you will. And I know both of you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Giancarlo, let's go back to you. And I want to go back to this Hemp Industries Association backing of Delta 8 THC. As a scientist, do you, and I know some states are banning Delta 8 THC. As a scientist, is that a good thing? Is it take it completely out of the equation when they've made it illegal to produce that?
I mean, as a scientist and personally, I don't think either of them should be banned, Delta 9 or Delta 8. But from a chemical perspective, I think Delta 8 is a lot closer to Delta 9 THC than it is to CBD. As Dr. Clifton mentioned, it does have intoxicating effects. So if that's the point of the ban, then it makes more sense to be lumped in with THC.
Yeah, I mean,
but honestly, none of them should be banned.
You're not a super fan of Delta.
I'm here in Detroit, and I'm all, talking to people at CannaCon about it, and everybody who is saying, well, we have to look at Delta 8 because we have to worry about the kids. What if the kids what if the kids can get access to it and then they get intoxicated? But I mean, boy, my argument is that the black market is alive and well, and so much of those products are being diverted directly from a dispensary. I don't think kids have any trouble accessing THC. I feel like a ban on Delta 8 is more an attempt to, control and protect the millions of dollars that people have invested in intoxicating THC. If we have another product that is intoxicating, but you don't have to have the, $43 million license that 22 people got in the state of Florida to be able to distribute it, then, that's something that these states are going to want to protect, because, people have invested a lot of money in these dispensaries and have a lot of stock options invested in them too. So to try to add, an intoxicating product that you can just create in your production facility and distribute without going through all of these hoops that the alcohol and cannabis industry have gone through is it's going to raise some flags.
Absolutely.
I mean, Yeah,
ahead.
because the initial evaluation, I mean, at least very preliminarily, I should have these videos wrapped up next week, but I mean, we're looking at you know, some Reddit feeds, we're looking at some very early safety data, and there's just really no uptick in worrisome safety findings. I mean, we all know that the lethal dose of cannabis is non-existent. No one has ever died in 4,000 years of recorded history from taking too much cannabis. But then when you make these subtle changes to the molecule, could it be that something very serious could be happening? You know, could there be a distinctly different outcome if somebody takes too much? You know, most people are taking somewhere between 10 and 30 milligrams when they're taking D8. I talked to one gentleman on the floor today who took 200 because it was presented in a multi-flavor packet and he wanted to try all the flavors. So he took 200 milligrams and he reported it as uncomfortably high, but didn't get sick, didn't have a bad outcome. So that's, you know, that's pretty encouraging. That's quite that seems to me to be quite one of the highest doses I've heard of yet.
You know, it's amazing. We're trying to beg people to get vaccinations, right? And then we have people like this who are just willing to be the guinea pig. They don't care. You know, it's pretty amazing. The human beings in the United States, it's just incredible what's going on right now.
No, it's like
Um,
if one is good, 10 is better. That's a, you know, I guess I
right,
can get behind that.
right. We all, the uncomfortable experience is something many people have shared. Let's just say those who have the edible products, you know, a lot of people are trying not to smoke the flower. So they're looking at tinctures and edibles and all that sort of thing. And one of the dangers of the edible universe, of course, is that the body breaks it down differently than if it's inhaled. And there's a delayed reaction. And that's probably what leads to some of these uncomfortable experiences with people who take too much of a edible with too much THC in it, far exceeding that 10 to 30 gram, let's say milligram dosage, Dr. Mary. Is it true if you are having one of those uncomfortable episodes, if you take a straight CBD oil or a product that has just CBD in it, like a CBD brownie or anything like that, will that
Mhm.
will that make you more comfortable and bring you down so it's more controllable, Dr. Mary?
Well, you know, I think of CBD a lot. I've seen these CBD parachutes where it's a 20 or 40 milligram administration of CBD that's intended to help you if things get a bit out of hand with your THC consumption. I think that, and I'd be interested to know what your opinion is, you know, in the laboratory, if you've seen any trends here, or if you could comment. But I feel like CBD is the tightest binding cannabinoid, and I feel like whenever CBD is around, it sort of knocks the other cannabinoids off the receptors and hogs the receptors. So if you've got too much THC stimulating your receptors, that administration of the CBD will sort of push the THC off the receptors. Now it's still in your body; it still has to get metabolized, but you know, presumably, if you've pushed it off and you haven't really overdosed yourself, you'll be able to, you know, have it flushed out of your system reasonably well in 6 to 8 hours. And if not, you could always just take another serving of the CBD. But I find that but in some ways the CBD is great in that it hogs the receptors. And then in other ways, you know, it being a receptor hog will sometimes get in the way when you're adding a little CBN, for example, to help with anxiety and you want to add more calm. Or if you're trying to get more THC, it really helps to pull, you know, that CBD concentration down a bit, I think, so that you can get the results that you're trying to get from the other cannabinoids.
Giancarlo, do you
What
want
would
to
you
comment?
say?
Giancarlo, do you want to comment on what Mary just said?
Well, our focus in the lab is purely analytical. I'd love to do some research on that. That is the first I've ever heard of that, and it sounds really cool, honestly. Like that's some really promising research right there, that the
Well,
CBD can kind of be an antagonist for THC. That's great.
right. And I actually go to first responders, to be honest with you, because I know that there are more instances of uncomfortable experiences in legal states, especially with edibles and people not knowing what they do. And I just wonder if the first responders out there are using a straight CBD oil or injection or something to help those who feel like they need to either go to an emergency room or get some medical help in order to make themselves more comfortable. I do you know any
Oh, I
stories?
like the idea of that.
You like the
You know
idea?
how when people have overdosed on opioids, we have naloxone as a reversal agent that we actually give to opioid addicts, and we give to families, and we also give to first responders so that the opioid can be reversed.
Right.
I mean, excuse me, that would be really interesting to also make sure that people in the emergency rooms or in first responders knew about that. Well,
Right.
Jimmy, I guess I have another video I need to shoot apparently.
Well, I think it's really important. And I go back to my own experience when I lost my dabbing virginity at the Freedom Rally in 2019. I'd never done it before. And the people who were walking me through that experience had, a 50 milligram CBD brownie standing by. Actually, they handed to me just in case it was a creeping experience. Now, tolerance and what have you, I managed to get through it without eating that CBD brownie, I just want to say, but I don't recommend dabbing personally. I know there are people out there who do that and enjoy it. Dr. Mary, what's your feeling about that type of injection of cannabis, using the dab and boiling the oils with the butane?
Yeah.
It's way too
I
complicated.
mean, it's a big administration. Even before we have a conversation about if waxes and things like that are appropriate to be putting into your lungs, I do worry that your lungs really don't know how to manage that. But lungs are really designed to filter air and not really to manage oil or wax. So the vaping and the dabbing, I have some concerns about that. But the stimulation to the frontal temporal regions of your brain when you dab is very intense. That is a lot of medicine all at once. So I'm a little bit worried about short and long term side effects of a lot of dabbing. I'm really a whole flower person, Jimmy, when you come down to it, because these flowers were designed the way they were designed. But eating whole foods and if you're going to smoke cannabis, smoking a whole flower, that just seems like the most natural way to go. But I mean, if you're not into it, or if you have a lung condition or whatever, my only other comment, going back to the parachute, the CBD parachute, is that I think if the dabbers are worried about overstimulation, they should maybe have like a CBD flower cigarette, because then you could, get that virtually instantly into your system, or a tincture. Because if you take a brownie, again, you're at that 60 to 90 minutes before you get the peak response from that. And that's a long time to be dealing with too much dab.
Right. Well, it's foreign to people, humans. Look, we're all frail beings, and you go. We're all trained. Let's go to a bar. We get a drink, and you immediately feel some intoxication going on. If you go to a social club somewhere, there's a few of them out there, and you actually partake, and you smoke, or you inhale it, you feel it. You saw Conan O'Brien this week. He took his first hit on live TV. That's the lead story on our news show, by the way, that follows this broadcast. And it was fun to watch that. But the point is, I think that humans still associate smoking with smoking cigarettes, and it isn't the same, at least not as far as research goes or shows people, right? You good.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, smoking cigarettes is like 250 inhalations over the course of a 24-hour period, where most people who are using cannabis aren't inhaling more than 6 or 8 times a day. And so the risks are entirely different. Add to that inhaling cannabis is different, totally different than inhaling tobacco that has all of its additives and the insecticides and pesticides. There's a lot going on in a cigarette that is inflammatory. So much so that there's actually a patent in place that's being studied now, where some of the tobacco companies are putting CBD in their tobacco cigarettes to try to reduce the toxicity and the inflammation associated with tobacco smoke.
Huh. You know, another reason why I'm going to leave my body to science after I'm gone, okay? Because you guys can study it. I'll give you my diary, right? A lot of people keep their personal diary about what they're taking, how they're taking, which I know doctors actually recommend. And I do think that there's actually an app out, I believe, that also can keep track of your intake of the product. Just a fascinating time to be sitting around and talking about all this kinds of things. And it is an amazing time to recognize that we can openly talk about cannabis as an improving factor in wellness. And that's one of the reasons why
Yes.
people, my age appropriate class, the 50 plus class that's out there, fastest growing demographic group in the cannabis space. So, experiment away. Dr. Mary, as always, I know you've got somebody coming up special, and of course, we are now running the Doctor's Lounge on our PCM TV app on Roku, and we live stream it on our website, procannabismedia.com. Who do you have coming up, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, we've got some amazing shows coming up. I mean, we've interviewed Jordan Tischler and Uma Donabalan, and gosh, who did
Peter
we
Grinspoon,
interview
too.
this week?
That's like
Oh,
the
yeah,
Mount.
Peter
That's like the
Grinspoon.
Mount Rushmore of Massachusetts.
I mean, I actually didn't have to even work. I just basically sat back and Peter interviewed himself. He's brilliant. And, he tells a great story about him and his dad and a concert when he was a kid. He's lovely. We're working on a position statement with the NACB together with the National Association of Cannabis Businesses to support healthcare providers being allowed to use cannabis recreationally and medicinally, because there's still a lot of pressure on healthcare people to never use. So we want to try to change some of those old stigmas and illogical rules.
And how do people find out about Dr. Mary Clifton? I know you've got your website going.
Oh, sure. You can check things out at cbdandcannabisinfo.com. And that I have a bunch of educational videos there that I add to all the time.
There you go. And Giancarlo, you tell me, what first of all, what's the funniest thing you've ever tested for CBD?
Oh, yeah.
The funniest thing, because I know.
We had someone bring in some eyelash growth serum one time. That one made me laugh.
It's not the socks. Scott Churchill talks about the socks in the Pennsylvania lab that they brought in to see CBD in the socks and how much was in that. I don't get that at all. But
okay, that's definitely better. Yeah, that one wins.
Well, anyway, we love MCR Labs. Keep up the good work. The most important thing to me is what you guys do, because you're testing the products that medical patients use to go in and get some help at their dispensary. So I appreciate all that MCR Labs does. And of course, Dr. Mary, I just appreciate you as a human being. I'm so happy to have you on our PCM team. And I look forward to continuing to watch the Doctor's Lounge future episodes. But right now, we're going to take a break. And then when we come back, we've got two very special guests. At least we're expecting two very special guests, including one, Michael Thompson. He's a great story. You don't want to miss that. We'll continue with Green Rush Live after this. Don't go away.
Hi, I'm Ben Shire, New England rep for Salient Video Management Systems. Let me tell you what makes us different in the security space. We're your trusted advisors for all your security needs. I know how complicated the regulations are in cannabis, and working with Salient Systems will be the polar opposite of that. I give free consultations and will walk you through every step of the process so that you can get what you need at the price you can afford. We're robust, we're simple and scalable. We're Salient Systems, your solutions to all your security needs. Please contact me at the information below, and I'm looking forward to being your trusted advisor.
So I think there's one very important difference between me and most of my team members and other cannabis accounting firms, especially outsourced cannabis accounting firms. With a lot of the other firms, you're going to find bookkeepers or folks that were accountants for their entire career, but they were junior accountants. I've spent most of my career alongside CFOs at public companies, companies with thousands of employees, public companies. So much of my career wasn't spent in the debits and credits. It was spent with the CFO, CEO, COO of large public companies, working on strategy, working on planning and big initiatives, working on projects such as mergers and integrations. So that high level experience, along with being able to do the debits and credits and having members of my team that also have fairly senior experience, and also members of the team that are junior and can do the bookkeeping at a little bit lower cost than some of the people with the experience, gives our clients a much broader depth of experience than a lot of the other firms where you're hiring someone that is just a bookkeeper and can't help with the strategy side of it, or someone that's been an executive for a long time and can only help with the strategy but can't help with the hands-on.
One medical decision comes first, and by Salient Systems for Video Surveillance. You've got regulations, Salient has solutions for your security needs. And by Accounting Buds, your number one CPA specialist for the cannabis industry. And by Artery Pay, easy, cheap, fun, and legal, just like cannabis should be. Welcome back to the Green Rush Live on a Friday afternoon. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media and the host of this show. We also want to send out good best well wishes to my normal co-host, David Rabinovitz, who's a little under the weather, and we want to make sure that he has a healthy recovery. Speaking of healthy recoveries, joining us now in the Green Rush Live room is a gentleman by the name of Michael Thompson. Now, Michael's story has been well documented, and in fact, I believe there's a documentary coming out about Michael's life and what exactly led to him being incarcerated for 25 years in Michigan for selling cannabis to an undercover law enforcement agent. And that was, I believe, back in the 90s or the 80s, was it, Michael?
96.
96. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. How challenging has it been for you? We talk a lot. Those who have been incarcerated know what it's like to be in prison. Those who are not, have never been, have no idea. Can you explain the challenges of what it was like for you?
Yes, the challenges was great because you're dealing with so much, and you're dealing with so many different personalities, as well as you're dealing with your mental insanity as well, because the simple fact as guys commit suicide all the time in prison for less than what I've endured. And just some people are just stronger than others. Prison life is not for nobody to think they're gonna come and eat good. And it ain't no place where you think you're gonna get respect. It's no place where you think someone gonna talk to you every day like a human being, or show you some kind of humanity. It's an ugly place. It's an ugly place, and then you thinking about your kids, and you thinking about your family, and you have deaths. Like my only son died. During the time, and that was my best friend. And so it just it goes on, and then you talk about the healthcare in there is kind of rough, man. You don't get no healthcare. Now, I've been crying for 14 years for something I just had surgery for. I just had hip surgery, a complete hip surgery, and they kept telling me take a Tylenol. That's their favorite word. Take a Tylenol. And I was in pain for 14 years, and then when I get out, Bob Dodge, picked up the phone, made one phone call, and to a doctor, and And I went to the doctor, and the doctor sent me to get some x-rays, MRI and all that. Then they quickly sent me to a surgeon because they said I need to have hip replacement right away. And I was just been in that much pain. I thought it was a groin. I pulled a groin. I thought it was my knee. And to kind of find out that hip is no joke. And that hip make you think you got knee trouble, groin trouble, and everything else. And so I learned a lot about hip replacement. And I got a lot of respect for it. Those who have it.
Was it your left hip, Michael, or your right hip?
On my left hip.
We are left hip brothers. My left hip is replaced. Okay.
So I don't feel bad then. I feel bad. Let somebody else endured that pain that I endured. That's no play toy, man. And
but I was lucky because I was not having to deal with the prison system and the healthcare in there. I had private insurance and I had it taken care of. By the way, the first one failed. The second one did not. So I'm very proud of the fact that I've got a titanium hit now, and it's working just fine. And I'm going to say, I'm pretty sure I had it done in 2008. So that's 13 years. That's pretty good, right?
Yeah, you're a tough guy.
Yeah, you don't know me that well. That's all right. The nice thing is I can live to tell the story. I do see that we might have another gentleman in our Zoom room, but until I get to see that we have a video feed, I'm just going to continue to talk to Michael here. Michael, one of the things we do want to talk about is the importance of prison reform. As someone who has been in that space and has been now out for a few months, and obviously, I believe pretty sure you had COVID at one point and had to deal with that in prison, which is, that's just not fair, to be honest. But what would you like to see implemented? What kind of a program would you like to see implemented for formerly incarcerated people in prison for cannabis crimes? What kind of a workforce development program, what kind of rehab would you like to see, and opportunities for people who come out of jail that have these cannabis offenses and have opportunities to perhaps get into the business? What would you like to see happen?
Well, I like to see everybody play fair. And the way you play fair is to give a person a chance, that you done caged him up for all these years for marijuana that you're making billions of dollars off of now. I think they should get the first shot. Those who did some time for a long time and suffered. But now it's legal, and now they should give them opportunity to make a decent living by selling something that put them in prison and be successful at it. I just think they need to, just revisit, revisit people like that, because they deserve a good life as well. Especially if they ain't killed no one, they're in there for marijuana. Who marijuana done killed? I mean, what has marijuana done to anybody? And so I'm just saying that's something that I think those individuals should get first shot at it.
Absolutely. And, in Massachusetts, the law that was written in a way to give social equity applicants and those who have been most impacted by the failed war on drugs an opportunity to get into the cannabis business. And they now are starting to award delivery licenses for that. In fact, I believe there's two types of licenses in Massachusetts. One's kind of like an Uber Eats kind of a thing, and the other one is a true buy it from a wholesaler, go out and deliver it, and run your business. So there are now opportunities, but there's so much more than just applying for a license and going into business too. Life skills. How challenging was it for you to go from incarceration to freedom? And I know, and I've seen the video of your family welcoming you back into the free world, as it were. Can you reflect a little bit about that experience for you?
Well, it's like yeah, it's like uh, usually when a person like myself get released, they supposed to go through a reentry, and they supposed to you get your Social Security card and all that kind of stuff. They didn't do me like that. And usually you leave at 8 o'clock in the morning when you finally get your reentry out the way. And but I left at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And they gave me a duffel bag, and they don't. That's against their policy, letting any duffel bag leave the prison. But I left the prison with a duffel bag. I asked my daughter, "Where you get this from?" She said, "They told me to take it." They were just trying to get me out of there. They didn't care what, what I'm saying. They didn't care about their policies or nothing else. They just wanted me out there. They said, "Well, your family out there and a bunch of news medias out there." And I said, "Well," I said, "Okay." But when I first walked out, just like to answer your question, when I first walked out, if you look back at it, see, I turned my head to the right and turned my head to the left. And I was, it's just like a man coming from the jungle and into the city. And you're seeing all these cars and people and human beings. And so it just that
The shock.
I asked myself these words. I said, look, I said, am I really truly free? That's what I asked. And because I was lost, man, I didn't know anything. Then I get in a car that the car was talking to the person, telling where to go and to what street to turn and all that kind of stuff, so, I mean, you tell me, what was your mind? Where your mind going? You seeing all this stuff, and then you seeing all these telephones, and they showing you telephones, doing all this, everything going fast. Everything, they trying to show me, they show me so fast that I said, forget it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even want no phone. So it just, because a lot of love out there from Last President Project and Sean King and the lawyer that Kim Kardashian got for me. And after the Rolling Stone magazine came out, then this other magazine that the Tana called Interscope. And after all that, and then when it got the attention of Snoop Dogg and Montel Williams and all them. And so it just said, I got a lot of help and a lot of love, and that lawyer, she stuck with me, Kim Corral. She stuck with me, saying she was really there for me. And then nobody was there for me like Diddy Kirkwood. She was like teaching me like I'm a baby, it's just like she was walking me through it, she was helping me. And I was thankful to her husband, that her husband let her, spend the time he did, helping me, man, because if it wasn't for her, man, I don't know what, man. It's just the same whole thing. Been a fast ride and a crazy ride at the same time, but it's been a loving ride, and I'm thankful to it.
Well, it's great that there are still people out there who care and are willing to give their time, effort, and skills to help someone who was really unjustly incarcerated. You got something like 60 years or something like that for selling, a small amount a week. Can you tell me how much you were actually doing with this guy, with the undercover cop?
Yeah, well, I didn't know he turned informant. I didn't know him and his wife was trying to save their own ass. So they gave my ass up and set me up, and I was out the business. I was selling marijuana at the time, but because he kept calling me 3 times and he wanted to get some for a bachelor party. And so I picked his baby up. I never thought he would do something like that, but I picked his baby up and he managed a muffler shop, and he put me on a guilt trip. He was telling me how much he was doing for my mother, my brothers, and giving discounts for shocks and mufflers and that. And it made me feel bad, I said, okay, man, I'll get you 3 pounds of marijuana. And that's what happened, and here I am. And so it's just I was doing good with the Aretha Franklins and Patti LaBelle's and all them big names, entertainers' names, and then I did that big play, My Arms Too Short, The Bicycle Guide, and I was doing well, man. I didn't need to sell 3 pounds of marijuana, but he put me on a guilt trip, and that's what happened. I really wanted to distance myself away from doing anything at that time that it was illegal.
Wow. Well, I know that there's going to be a documentary. A documentary is about what you've gone through in your life in the production works, and I know now that you've become a little bit of a celebrity, Michael. Are you comfortable with that?
I love that. Hey, you got to understand. You got to understand your question, and then you got to understand my answer. The question is, I'm happy, I'm comfortable with it. Well, how could I not be? Coming from where I come from.
Right. It's exactly right. I mean, there's nothing. No one can imagine it unless you've gone through it yourself. There's no doubt. I totally understand that and respect that as well. I'm also thinking you want to give a shout out to the governor, Gretchen Whitmer, who was the one who gave you clemency too. I mean, that had to make you feel really special, obviously.
Oh yeah, she was. She did the right thing, and I don't know what made her do the right thing. I don't know if it actually was come from her heart, or was it political? You know what I'm saying? I don't know, but I'm thinking that all I want to think is that she came from her heart, right. Because just like the Attorney General, everything she did I know came from her heart, and she fought hard for me. She wrote a letter that I couldn't believe that she written on my behalf, and along with her and Montel Williams, and so I just and then this lady named Chelsea Hannell. They all really stepped up for me, and I'm thankful to the mayor. To the governor, and I if I ever get a chance, I would like to thank her personally. But if I don't, I want her to know that I'm thankful.
Kind of gives you faith in humanity when I hear stories about people like that in positions of power, looking to help and right injustice in our world. It is one of the things that so happy to be part of this industry and hearing stories like this. And I don't know if you heard, but the Last Prisoner Project had a good day today. They got a few more formerly incarcerated people out of jail in Kansas, the state of Kansas. What that organization is doing in the few years that they have been in existence is remarkable. I have incredible respect for Steve D'Angelo and also his brother Andrew. Both guys I've gotten an opportunity to meet and interview as well. What's the most fun thing that you've done since you've been out?
Oh, the most fun thing I've done since I've been out was, doing whatever the hell I want to. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes it so fun. And just doing whatever you want to do, and you don't have to answer to nobody. And as long as you're doing it right, as long as it ain't against the law. And that's what makes it so fun and beautiful, because I can get up and eat what I want to eat when I want to eat, and then I'm sleeping in a real bed. Oh man, I'm talking about a real bed. I didn't think even they make them kind of beds. The bed's so high, you gotta get up on them. And I said, man, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And just living in a home, man, because a home means so much to me, mainly because I was born in a house, because I couldn't be born in no hospital because I was born in Mississippi, Oxford, Mississippi, and you couldn't be born in a house. You had to be born by a midwife. And nobody born at that time was born in a hospital. They said they was, they telling a damn lie. Because you wasn't born in a hospital during that time in Mississippi, So a house means a lot to me. And when Sean Keenum did the fundraising, Chelsea Satula, and all of them, and the ladies that wrote Rolling Stones, Tana, when they all teamed up and they all got me in this house and through the GoFundMe, and got me a nice car, vehicle, and everything. So God is good, and I've been truly blessed, and I don't hold no animosity towards no one. I forgive everyone.
That's beautiful. That is a beautiful thing. Are you doing speaking engagements now? Are they filling up your schedule on a regular basis so you could tell your story? Is that what's taking up most of your time during the day?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of prison reform, and I've been given a platform. Every time I get a platform, I speak about prison reform. And so it's been a lot of people listening, and they want to hear the truth about inside prison life. And I'm telling the story, and I'm telling them the truth. So if they want to correct something, they can correct it through my eyes, my ears. But if they want to keep ignoring it, they can just deal with the blood on the streets, because somebody's doing something wrong, because there's too much killing out there, man. Way too much, far too much killing.
And especially even now, I was watching the news, and the amount of violence that we have in our world today, the fact that everybody had to come through this pandemic after a year and a half, and now everybody's catching up. You know what I'm saying? They're out there doing crazy things instead of thinking about the fact that they're alive and free, right? Those are two things I think you will never take for granted anymore, correct?
No, never. And why would I want to kill somebody who never did nothing to me?
No,
and
violence is never an answer, right?
No, that's right. And why you resort to that? That'd be the first thing you resort to, to kill somebody. Just like a car rage and stuff. You get mad at a person because he cut in front of you. You need to go pull your gun out and shoot him. I mean, that's kind of sick. And it's going on, and it's going to get worse, because it seems like the only thing the politicians care about is getting reelected. And it seems like just like the guys in prison say, the politicians don't care about us because our vote don't count. And he said the taxpayers don't care about us because so we're a burden on the taxpayers. And so who give a damn about us, man? Who give a damn about us? And then when they get released, then they say, man, the hell with all y'all. The hell with you and everybody that live with you. And I'm gonna kill everything moving. And that's the attitude they get. It's all about me now. It's been all about you guys. Now it's all about me. And that's what they're learning from the politicians. That's what they're learning from people that turn their backs on them, turn their head to them. They're not listening to them. And see, if they keep on doing that, it's gonna get worse. Them streets is gonna get worse. And they know that, because it's one thing about, anyway, I ain't gonna jump the gun. I'll wait till you get finished, then I'll get into that.
Well, I'd love for you to keep going about prison reform, because I think this country's had it backwards for years. Instead of punishing people, we need to either rehabilitate them or work with them so that they can turn their lives around. I always believe in forgiveness and second chances with everything anyway. And, it's funny, you mentioned that while you're in prison, you don't feel like anybody cares about you. And yet, right 5 minutes before that, you listed about 12 people who did care about you and got you out. And so I'm guessing that when you are behind bars, you have to cling to hope that there are people, good people, that are looking after people who have been unjustly punished. You agree?
Yeah, and let me cut loose now. Since you got back into the prison reform again.
Yep.
yeah, that's that's the attitude they get. And you got to realize that them guys in prison is suffering. And they getting fed like a dog. They getting fed like a dog. And I ain't talking about no special pets. This is a dog they don't give a damn about. And the healthcare is horrible, horrible. And just like I spoke about it earlier, it's horrible. And everything they do there, they treat you less than a man. They take your manhood from you, talk to you like you're a punk. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just straight up, just like you got a mini skirt on. And it's just sad, man. You know what I'm saying? How many times I had to bite down on another man talking to me like I had a mini skirt on. And it's just sad, and they need to train them officers, to treat a human being like a human being. Them officers don't have no fear of the consequences of their actions, because they got grievance process. They say, well, would you file a grievance? File a grievance. That grievance is a joke. That man, they'll give you ask them for a grievance, they'll give you 5 of them. And then tell you, make sure you spell my name right. Just stuff like that. So if the grievance process don't work, well, where do a prisoner have to turn? Who can he turn to for help? Who can he turn to for fairness? And somebody that going, that be a meter between them and the police. And see, there's so many guys getting set up with the same knife and all that kind of stuff. And again, getting set up, police is setting them up because they don't like them. Just like right before I came out, the washing machine broke and they wouldn't fix the washing machine. And this is 4 months before I got released. And they wouldn't fix the washing machine. And so I went back to when I was behind the walls of Jackson, and I started washing my clothes in the toilet stool. And because I can flush, rinse, flush, wash, flush. And it might sound kind of strange to you, many other people, but my clothes was clean as far as I was concerned. And as long as I had clean clothes, that's all I was concerned about. But they didn't give a damn. They didn't care if you wore the same clothes. They didn't care nothing. Even though, if a germ break out, that would be a bad thing inside the prison. They should be put that as a security issue, because you don't want no breakout inside no prison. But the police don't care. All they care about is the paycheck. And see, so I say all that to say this to you.
I get
When I was leaving, people was talking to me and they was telling me things like, it's in my head, it's in my head, and it's gonna be in my head for a while. And the first thing they already said is, Miko, whatever they called me in prison, Miko, tell the truth. And he said, they always said the same thing, just tell the truth, man. Don't be scared and don't be bought and paid for. Tell the truth. And that's what I'm doing. I'm telling the truth. And for those who listening to me, I'm just letting you know that your country, your prison in America is one step away from being a third world prison, third world country. And those guys is getting out, don't even recognize you anymore. And you, that little boy next door, is not the little boy next door no more. He might be the one that kill you, come and strangle you to death, and you probably helped raise him. But after leaving that prison, he's not the little boy next door no more. Because you never know what happened to him. You don't know how much violations that he had to go through. And then he tried to crowd, and nobody heard him. And don't nobody care. So I'm just saying that it's a lot of hatred that sometimes a person leave out of prison, they bring home with them. And it's one thing about a shark. When a shark get hungry, a shark going to eat. And if you leave a man with nothing and put him out there with nothing, you're going to find a way to eat. At the same time you find a way to eat, somebody could lose their life.
Well, I got to tell you, Michael Thompson, you have a big fan now in the Massachusetts area, and I'm hoping that people who watch or listen to this interview will come away thinking about the world that you have described, the world that you have come out of, and the world that you're now into. And I always look at good in all people. I find something good about all people, and I try to build my relationship around that. And I'm so happy to hear that you had people that believed you, helped you, and still got you out. And I think that is what I leave this interview with, is that there is still faith, there is still hope, that there are good people out there, that there are people that want to help people that have been incarcerated for cannabis offenses. And there's another story I know about another person who lost his life because he got beat up in jail. And after he got out and was in the care of his family, he ended up dying within a year or so. So it is I just don't think we need to treat fellow human beings like they do in prison. I really believe that there is a way to give education and vocational skills and opportunities to the people in prison so that they can rehab themselves, give themselves some hope, and get them out and taste freedom similarly to what you've been going through now over the last few months. And
well, what you say, you speaking logic, you speaking like a reasonable man, like a man of wisdom. But they didn't did studies. They didn't did studies about this, about the prison system. They spent millions of dollars.
Yep.
Did this study, and they know what the problem is. They know what the problem is already, because when you do studies, usually you got a solution. But what they do a study, and everybody go with their little money, the millions of dollars, and then the whole subject disappeared.
Right.
And see, so they didn't already found out about the habitual offender, felony murder, good time. They already know what it is about it. Marijuana, there shouldn't be no people in marijuana no more. Just use your common sense. Who had marijuana killed? You know what I'm saying? I mean, why you keep dealing with this marijuana thing? Why you keep on wasting your jails for this marijuana? You know what I'm saying? So now here you go with the rope for people of color. You go with this rope here. You go with the habitual offender. You charge him with a habitual offender, and then you bury him. Then here you is, you felony murder. Here you is, you got guys in there with felony murder, been in there 40, 50 years. 40, 50 years, I know him. And you still let him ride in there, and this man ain't killed nobody. But because he was there during the time somebody got killed, and even though he didn't have no gun, he didn't have no intentions going there to kill nobody. He didn't have no intention, but he been in prison now 45, 50 years. I can name them: Feula, Horace Peterson, all of them. Then a guy named Michael Cannon been in prison for 36 years for a fist fight. And all these guys, now the only thing you gotta do is just get them the senator, get them their good time back. Let them work their way, for they can get out.
it's how they do it in Europe,
Get rid of that habitual offender. It shouldn't be in there. The only thing they do is put it on people of color. Felony murder, revisit that because there's a lot of people that deserve to be in prison, but there's a lot of people that don't.
Right.
You know, and I'm just saying that, see, when you keep a person locked up like that, okay, that's during a time, and I ain't saying they was angels in the early thing. I'm just saying they weren't no killers. I'm saying that they wasn't nobody like that because now they come in prison, they had to survive. So when they first got in there at a young age, and they got tickets and all misconduct and all that stuff. But now most of these guys I'm talking about have been down for a long time. They call them OGs in prison. That's what the young kids call them. OGs, they look up to them guys. You put them back in their communities, and then you got them being grandfathers and fathers and uncles to them guys on the street in the same neighborhood. And see, so that's what they look up to. And then you got the single mothers out there raising their kids by herself. And what do they expect when the mother got to work sometimes 2 jobs? And then you got the kids turning to the streets for love.
Right.
Then eventually penitentiary will become their mother and their father.
That's wrong. I'm sorry. We have to do something. I hope people continue to hear your story so that we can continue to make whatever changes we can, because there's so many things going wrong right now in our world. I think the more we talk about them, and you know, race is right in the middle of this. Race is an issue with cannabis. We know that. They filled the prisons because they could target Black people because they figured, hey, he must have weed on him. Let's go hassle him for the broken taillight that they have, or they didn't signal when they took a right turn, or whatever it was that the law enforcement officer decided to pull the Black person over for some kind of a traffic violation. And the next thing you know, your life's over. And that's not right for this kind of a wrong. And you know, I remember Richard Nixon. Okay. I was not a fan in the 60s, let's just say, and the 70s of his politics. And the fact that here we are 50 years later, still dealing with this, I'm stupefied. I really am. And I just hope that, again, your story, we can share it with others. I wish you, sir, a beautiful life. You deserve a beautiful life over the next however long God wants to keep you on this earth. I'm hoping that you cherish every day. I kind of go through life that way too. I get a lot of abuse for the way I look at the world, but I don't really care anymore because I know how fortunate I am. You know, when I hear stories like this, I feel so guilty for what my race has done to others in this country. It really bothers me. And I know I piss people off when I say that, but guess what? I don't care anymore. Okay. Because I think we need to tell these stories. I think we need to show examples of look, we get it. Violent crime, you should be punished for violent crime. But cannabis is a plant. Okay. And they made it illegal because it was based on race. That's exactly why they did it. That's why Dickie Nixon did it with his Controlled Substances Act in 1973. And here we are 50 years later, and we're still trying to rid those wrongs, and they have to be done. It's why the Last Prisoner Project exists. It's why, you know, we always talk about what the work that they do. And you, sir, are a prime example of what can happen, and give an opportunity to someone like yourself to have that second chance. And, you know, I wish you the best in the future, Michael Thompson. You deserve it.
They need more people like you in the world.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've always just had a big mouth, and I just like to share that with others. You know, I'm not afraid to speak up, and I don't really care, you know, the trouble it gets me into anymore at this point. But one last thing. We have to give credit to the guy who put us together. All right. I mean, I give Rick Thompson a hard time a little bit from Michigan, and the host of the Jazz Cabbage Cafe, but he has been awesome with us. We're so happy to have his show, and he's the one who brought us together. So a Thompson relative, if you will, brought us together, Michael. And I want to give a shout out to him. What's he really like? Come on. What's he really like?
Rick Thompson been at every function I didn't had since I've been out of prison. He didn't even come to the dinner that was at my home.
Right.
And we had some good cooks cook for us, and we had a good time at our home, and we shared some wisdom with each other and some other people that was there as well. Rick Thompson is serious about what he's doing.
Yep.
And he's on a mission, just like I'm on a mission right now.
Cool.
And whatever I can do to help him, and I know whatever he can do to help me, he will.
Well, I all you have to do is Google your name, and a lot of good stuff comes up. And make sure you're not reading the obituary of Michael Thompson, because you are very much alive. Are you not, sir? I mean, I remember searching for you and say, wait, there was a Michael Thompson who passed. By the way, there's a lot of Jimmy Youngs in the world too. It's a pretty common name, so we have to deal with those things, right?
Yeah.
Hey, if people want to help you out, how do they find you, and where should they go? I know the internet and Google is the best way to do it. Am I right?
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. And I got PO boxes on it, my Instagram as well. But the same token, I just want people to see. A lot of people don't understand the life within prison life. I'm telling you, you don't have to go. I already went, so I'm telling you everything you need to know about prison life. But I'm telling you what's wrong with it. Now, either you want to fix it, or you want to keep it broken. If you want to keep it broken, then quit crying about what's happening in the streets, then. Because them is still human beings. They're still coming back out in society. So either you're going to correct this problem, or you're going to keep it broken.
Wow. Let's try to correct it. All right. Let's try to correct it as quickly as we can, even if we have to do it one person at a time. And that does seem to be where we're at this point. But hopefully those that make our laws, our elected officials in Washington, will get to hear your story and share that with others that are sitting in those elected positions and not doing what the people that put them in their positions want them to do. Can't believe cannabis is in the middle of all this, but we have to take advantage of the momentum to keep it going in the right direction, because there's always a right direction and a wrong direction, right? And when you're free, you go in the right direction. And Michael Thompson, I wish you the best in the future. Thank you so much for joining us here on Friday afternoon on our Green Rush Live show. You've given an education to me and to the others who watch and listen, and thank you, sir.
Thank you and all your listeners.
All right. That's Michael Thompson. We're going to take a quick break and then come back on the other side, and I'm going to wrap things up. Don't go away. Hi, I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media. And when I started Pro Cannabis Media 2 years ago, I wanted to make sure the cannabis industry had a professional outlet to share their stories in their own words. Now, since it all started with my podcast In the Weeds 3 years ago, I've done over 250 interviews. I've met some incredible people with a shared passion for this amazing plant. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard the line, cannabis has saved my life, cannabis has changed my life. Well, now it's your turn. We want to give you a chance to tell your own story. It doesn't even need to be related to the medicinal power of this incredible plant. Just to give you a little incentive, we will pick 5 stories to share on our live Green Rush show on Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern. If we share your story, you automatically get one of our t-shirts with that closing line I use all the time, "It's a whole new world of weed." But as the legendary Billy Mays used to say, that's not all. One of those finalists will win one of these really cool full-story cannabis storage units. It's a great way to store your cannabis in their food-grade aluminum containers. It's award-winning, child-proof, smell-proof, and has a solid contemporary design. It's a $220 value, but you can win one if we pick your story and feature it on our show. Yes, we will pick one of those 5 finalists, and they will receive this $220 value absolutely free. Now, We ask you to keep your story to under 90 seconds on video and less than 500 words in text. So come out of the cannabis closet and tell us your story, and you could win with yourstory.com. Just go on to procannabismedia.com and sign up today. You might even join us on one of our shows.
Hi, I'm Ben Shower, New England rep for Salient Video Management Systems. Let me tell you what makes us different in the security space. We're your trusted advisors for all your security needs. I know how complicated the regulations are in cannabis, and working with Salient Systems will be the polar opposite of that. I give free consultations and will walk you through every step of the process so that you can get what you need at the price you can afford. We're robust, we're simple and scalable. We're Salient Systems, your solutions to all your security needs. Please contact me at the information below, and I'm looking forward to being your trusted advisor.
First, and by Salient Systems for Video Surveillance. You've got regulations, Salient has solutions for your security needs. And by Accounting Buds, your #1 CPA specialist for the cannabis industry. And by Artery Pay, easy, cheap, fun, and legal, just like cannabis should be. Wow. That's all I got to say. And that's a lot for me. That was one of the most incredible interviews I've ever done in my life with Michael Thompson. And I really hope people will listen to what he had to say. I preach a lot. A lot of people give me a hard time for being as outspoken as I am about this, but we have got to make changes with prison reform in this country. We have got to continue to do the work, and salute the people at the Last Prisoner Project for trying to get every person who's incarcerated for cannabis offenses out of jail and give them an opportunity to get back into the world and be contributing members of society. I really do believe that punishment does not work. It really doesn't. When you tell a child that you can't do something or you can't touch that because it could hurt you, and the child wants to know why is that? Why I'm going to touch that hot stove so I can experience what hot is. Ow, oh my God, I burned my hand. Humans, we're frail beings. We make mistakes. Okay. We all deserve second chances. Every single religion talks about forgiveness. I don't care what religion it is. It's all based on forgiveness and understanding the challenges it is every one of us when we wake up every day. Anyway, that's my rave and rant for this Friday edition of the Green Rush Live. Look, it's summertime. We're going to be celebrating the 4th of July in the next week or so. We celebrate that we're in the greatest country on earth, but we have to fix the systems that are broken in this country. And maybe we don't agree so much on the what is broken or how to fix it. But until we start talking about it and giving an opportunity for people like Michael Thompson to tell his story, that's what it's all about. And if you haven't taken the time to go on to procannabismedia.com and tell your story, please do, because we continue to give out this container. This is the story device. This is childproof, smell-proof. You can keep your weed in it. No one will know it's in the living room. Okay? It's for the cannabis connoisseur out there. And we encourage you to check out this product. Tell us your cannabis story. Go on to our website, please, and share what role this plant has played in your life, or just tell me the goofy edible story, because my goodness gracious, we've all had them. We've all done too much, or we've had, it's not working. I think I'll have another. And then the next thing you know, as Dr. Mary Clifton described, it's an uncomfortable experience when you overdo it. Okay. So tell your story on procannabismedia.com. Stay tuned for Weed Talk News this week. A couple of big stories in weed, including Connecticut going legal. Governor Ned Lamont signed the bill. It's now legal to possess. I believe it goes into effect July 1st, so don't jump the gun here. I'm pretty sure you can have 1.5 ounces on your person now in Connecticut. So those who are out there partaking and enjoying it for a personal basis and doing it responsibly, you don't have to worry about a policeman coming along and ruining your life, because that's what they've done now for decades, since that Controlled Substances Act was put in place in 1973. Okay, putting cannabis alongside other drugs that can kill you. Okay, and cannabis, do it responsibly and figure out a way for it to work and improve your life, because it can, because it saves lives, it changes lives, it does these things, it has this effect on you if you do it responsibly. So that's why I came up with the saying, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. That's my closing line for all these shows. I continue to do it. You may say it's goofy. I don't really care anymore. I'm going to continue to say it. So for everybody here at Pro Cannabis Media, we're going to be off for a couple of weeks. We need to reinvigorate ourselves. Okay. We need to take a step back, and we'll be back at you in 2 weeks at this time from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then, of course, right at 6 p.m., we run our Weed Talk News show on a regular basis. And I want to thank all the contributors to that, because now we're getting reports from Rick Thompson in Michigan, and Jesse Lynn Dolan from Vermont, and Tara Massus Argente from New Jersey, and Phil Adams in DC, and Deborah Borchart's Green Market Report, and of course, Margot Vaselli from Illinois. And please, Dan, did I forget anybody? Yes, I did. Ron Marshalsea, our Massachusetts correspondent. Now I think I got everybody. So for everybody in the Pro Cannabis Media family, Dan French, Isabel Turner produced this thing. I'm Jimmy Young. Have a great weekend, a happy 4th of July, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Coming up on We Talk News this week, TV history is made when outgoing late-night TV host Conan O'Brien loses his weed virginity with Seth Rogen on one of those last shows that Conan will do. Plus, LA Lakers rookie Alex Caruso gets busted for stupidity at a Texas airport for carrying his personal stash and grinder on board. Plus, it's official. Weed is legal in Connecticut after Governor Ned Lamont signs that bill. Is Rhode Island the next New England state to follow? On We Talk News next. Pro Cannabis Media Programming and PCM TV is supported by Revolutionary Clinics, Massachusetts' #1 medical dispensary where the patient comes first, and by Salient Systems for Video Surveillance. You've got regulations, Salient has solutions for your security needs. And by Accounting Buds, your #1 CPA specialist for the cannabis industry. And by Artery Pay, easy, cheap, fun, and legal, just like cannabis should be.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, everyone. Happy summer. I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media with this week's roundup of cannabis news from around the country and the world. We've got 7 reports from different states coast to coast this week, and we will start with television late-night history being made during Conan O'Brien's last week of shows on TBS. He's moving on to another venture on HBO Max, and sure enough, on that show, Conan O'Brien took his first hit of cannabis live on TV. Passed it back to Seth Rogen and then over to co-host Andy Richter. This is the end of an 11-year run for Conan O'Brien on TBS, and that video has already been seen by 1.7 million people on YouTube, and it's had 56,000 likes. I can't understand this, but there are how many thumbs down? 902 thumbs down. What's up with that? O'Brien's last show was on Thursday night, the 24th. Now, that's not the only story out of California this week. LA Lakers rookie Alex Caruso got busted in a Texas airport for carrying on his personal stash and weed toys. That weed toy was a flour grinder with residue in it. He was arrested for drug possession and released on a $4,200 bond. Obviously, Caruso is more embarrassed than anything about his faux pas, but it should come as no surprise that professional basketball players have had a long history with the cannabis plant. Now, after talking with Celtics legend Paul Pierce earlier this week, the Conversation with Dave Briggs interviews The Glove, Gary Payton next week, and he too has his own cannabis story.
I smoked a little bit in high school, well, a lot in high school, and then all of a sudden, I go to college. People don't know I got in trouble for smoking in college. You know, I almost got kicked out. Ralph Miller, who was a strict coach, almost kicked me out. Then all of a sudden, I start thinking about it, that I need to get better in my life. You know, in my life about basketball. I struggled 2 years in the pros. That was because I was going out having a lot of fun, and I haven't did anything, smoked or anything ever since. And it's not nothing against it. It's just my choice.
Now, don't forget to send us your cannabis story and go onto our website at procannabismedia.com to enter, and you could win with PCM and with yourstory.com. That's your story with an I. Now, you could win a great child-proof and smell-proof story container for the cannabis connoisseur in your life, or you could just keep it for yourself. With one stroke of a pen, however, Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont has finally signed the cannabis adult use legalization bill for that state. Now, Connecticut residents can have 1.5 ounces on their person and another 5 ounces locked up in the trunk, perhaps in a story container, and you won't be arrested for possession. Sales are scheduled to begin in about 1 year. Meanwhile, sales continue here in Massachusetts, but now you can get your legal weed delivered to your house, and you will even have a choice of companies to do that. Here's our Massachusetts reporter Ron Marshalsea with that story.
I'm Ron Marshalsea with the Massachusetts Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Have you ever wanted to open a weed delivery service? Now you can in Massachusetts. This week, applications for cannabis delivery licenses were open and over 90 have already filed. Of that group, 31 permit applications were submitted to regulators. The executive director of the Cannabis Control Commission, Sean Collins, was quoted as saying, "It's really exciting to see this pent-up demand that we thought was there as a hypothetical is really coming true." The permits are so far only available to qualified social equity or economic empowerment program applicants and not the general public. This delivery license opportunity was created in order to give those most impacted by the failed war on drugs a chance to get in the cannabis business. In other news this week, Julie Frades, wife of Boston College baseball star Pete Frades, and Boston Marathon bombing survivor Michelle LaRoe have endorsed Curaleaf, a Massachusetts-based cannabis company. Their endorsement is an attempt to help normalize cannabis use by sharing their stories. Julie Frades said she has seen firsthand the benefits of cannabis after it helped not just her, but her husband Pete's anxiety while battling ALS. LaRoe said she had developed severe anxiety as well as many triggers after being hit with bomb shrapnel and going through 8 surgeries after the marathon attack. Both women will be using their stories to help promote Curaleaf's iCannabis campaign, which is, quote, aimed to further normalize and humanize cannabis while encouraging people to use the plant with confidence, not fear, end quote. Curaleaf Northeast president Patrick Janssen said the campaign is all about the personal stories of everyday people and their relationship with cannabis, and he hopes that others can benefit from hearing those stories. Finally, some dispensaries in Massachusetts are expecting an increase in sales, thanks to a new bill Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont signed into law. This bill legalizes recreational marijuana for anyone over the age of 21 starting July 1st. But seeing as the bill's aim is for sales to start in 2022, that leaves plenty of Connecticut recreational users without a nearby dispensary. This will most likely lead to more and more Connecticut natives making the trip to a bordering Massachusetts dispensary. Holyoke Cannabis Marketing Manager Jacob Black said, quote, "Probably at the moment, 35% of our business is out of state because we are so close to the Connecticut border." He added that he expects a substantial boost in sales after July 1st. That's this week's Massachusetts Cannabis Report. For Weed Talk News, I'm Ron Marshall.
Now that Connecticut has legalized, the next state making progress through their state legislature is Rhode Island. Their adult use bill passed their Senate 29-9. So now the next steps there will be to get the House to pass it and then move it along to the governor, Daniel McKee, who is expected to sign it. Now, that won't happen until the fall because our politicians need a summer vacation too. Now let's find out what's going on in the state that was the first in the nation to get their legalization movement through their elected officials. That state is Vermont. Here's the Green Nurse from the Green Mountain State, Jessie Lynn Dolan. Jessie Lynn?
Thanks, Jimmy. I'm Jessie Lynn Dolan from Nurse Grown Organics and Vermont Cannabis Nurses, and this is the Weed Talk News Vermont Report. Vermontuana is back again hosting their monthly Bud and Brunch events. The first gathering of 2021 will be on June 27th at Third Place Pizzeria in Castleton, where the Green Brothers Band will be performing live. Bud and Brunch is a private event that brings together the past, present, and future of the cannabis industry at a different cannabis-friendly venue in Vermont each month. Also coming up in September is Vermontuana's third annual Green Finders Invitational Golf Tournament at Lang Farm in Essex. The event will benefit cannabis reform and a targeted campaign to create a cannabis event permit. What event doesn't want a permit for cannabis? What farm in Vermont doesn't want to grow cannabis? An issue facing not just the Vermont cannabis farming community, but all Vermont farms is discrimination. The 148-acre Clemens family farm is one of the 0.4% farms in the U.S. that remains African-American owned. The Vermont Humane Rights Commission has found reasonable grounds to believe the Vermont State Police discriminated against Lydia Clemens, a Black woman member. As the Cannabis Control Board continues to meet regularly to form the foundation and rules for the ensuing Vermont adult use retail market, discrimination and social equity amongst farmers will be a hot topic. Last week, the board started to address these issues, hearing from cannabis felon and clean green cannabis inspector Matt Leonetti and Mark Hughes from Justice for All Vermont. That's the Vermont Report for Weed Talk News. I'm Vermont's cannabis nurse, Jessie Lynn Dolan.
On the Legal Weed Tote Board, the number of legal adult use states in the USA is now up to 19 or so. And I say or so because we count Washington, D.C. and South Dakota, even though South Dakota is challenging their ballot result in their state Supreme Court. Now, the states that have a legal medical program is up to 38, since Mississippi continues to fight the ballot result of that state. But get this. Medical marijuana is banned at the colleges and universities that operate inside those 38 legal states. So let's be honest. Historically, the college campus has been one of the biggest locations where cannabis is tried and consumed, many for the first time. Now, some colleges and universities are fearful of losing any of their federal aid, so they are holding their federal law as their guiding force for regulations, despite operating inside a legal state environment. What a mess. In 1989, 10 years after I graduated from Tufts, the Federal Drug-Free Schools and Communities Act required higher education to ban all illicit substances on school grounds or forfeit federal funding. You know how much has been do you know how much has been spent in those schools? How about $149 billion? So this is not chump change, people. The sad thing is, you still hear stories of people losing their lives to underage alcohol drinking, while no one has lost their life solely because of overconsumption of cannabis. I think the great state of Michigan gets it right. That's where you'll find Rick Thompson with this week's Michigan Cannabis Report. Rick?
This is the Michigan Report with Rick Thompson on Weed Talk News. Let's begin. The Lansing State Journal reports the inaugural 420 Festival is set to launch off in Adado Park within sight of the state capitol building on August 13th and 14th. The event was originally planned in 2019 for a 2020 launch, but then, well, you know. But the news is all good. Last year, they had no intention of allowing cannabis consumption within the public park. But this year, it's a big yes for 420 at the 420 Festival. Organizer Dan Doyle said there'll be the Hot Box Lounge, which is a tent in the middle of the public park where blazers can create ashes all day long. Sounds crazy, right? Who gave permission for that? Well, the city of Lansing and the Michigan Marijuana Regulatory Agency, that's who. It'll be a Michigan-regulated cannabis market first. Yeah, we did this many times in the gray market days, but we never asked permission. Cannabis sales figures for May are in, and here in Michigan we sold $148 million and change in the regulated market. Sounds good, but it's a 3% dip in sales from April, despite May having an extra day. But that's to be expected. April has the 420 holiday and Hash Bash too, so every April sales will be greater than trends would indicate. Medical cannabis sales are $44.5 million, which is down about 1.5% from last year. Rec sales are at $104.4 million, down about a single point from April's rec sales. But flower continues to dominate the market in sales, with flower and trim making up about 58% of the rec market in total. Wholesale prices for cannabis are down 48% from last year's tally. A wholesale pound is about $3,500 in the rec market. The 2021 total for cannabis sold in the regulated marketplace is $662 million. That puts Michigan on pace to hit $1.5 billion in sales this year. And no news for Michigan's cannabis scene would be complete without an update on that caregiver rights controversy. Remember, the Michigan Cannabis Manufacturers Association has set their sights on slashing the state's 12-year-old caregiver program in a desperate attempt to bring more customers into their corporate retail establishments. A social media rally on Monday gathered support from hundreds of people who said loudly they support no changes to the caregiver regulations. On Wednesday, a similar effort targeting businesses has nearly 100 businesses signing on to a pledge to not support those MCMA proposed changes. The Michigan legislature goes on summer break after today's session. We expect the MCMA to work in the shadows until after the break is over in September. Then, let the games begin. And that's it for the Michigan Report with Rick Thompson on Weed Talk News.
In Washington, D.C., the Supreme Court once again passes on ruling on the challenge to the 280E tax law. You know, that's the clause that allows businesses to write off business expenses, unless, of course, you're a cannabis company. Now, this might be the end of the road for that kind of a challenge, and that means that the best chance for cannabis advocates now for any kind of federal reform will be in the Senate. But that seems to be the place where all governance and progressive measures goes to die. Needless to say, I'm not too confident about the current political climate in our nation's capital. Here's Vote Pro podcast Phil Adams with the DC Report. Phil?
Hi, I'm Phil Adams from Vote Pro Podcast, here with the Weed Talk News DC Report. House Democrats approved their version of the 2022 appropriations bill, which would end the ban on cannabis sales in DC. Setting up a potential showdown with the Biden administration, the House Financial Services and General Government Subcommittee excluded from the budget bill a rider barring the District of Columbia from using tax dollars to implement legal cannabis sales. President Biden wants to maintain the ban, which was originally added when Republicans controlled the House. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser said in April that the district council is prepared to move forward with recreational marijuana sales once they, quote, get Congress out of the way. D.C. voters legalized cannabis possession and home cultivation in 2014. A representative from the Department of Veterans Affairs told senators this week that the Biden administration remains opposed to the VA Medical Cannabis Research Act. In a hearing of the Veterans Affairs Committee, lawmakers discussed the bill requiring the VA to conduct clinical trials into the therapeutic potential of marijuana for military veterans. Mark Upton, acting Deputy Undersecretary of Health for Community Care, told the committee that the VA considers the proposed legislation unnecessary because the agency is, quote, already dedicating resources to study the effects of cannabis on conditions affecting veterans. A 2020 Trump appointee, Upton continues to serve under Joe Biden. The United Nations is urging a global ban on cannabis advertising. In its 2021 World Drug Report, the UN Office of Drugs and Crime said young people continue to underestimate the dangers of cannabis as legalization movements continue to ramp up worldwide. The report says, quote, a comprehensive ban on advertising, promoting, and sponsoring cannabis would ensure that the public health interests prevail over business interests. Many legal reform advocates see this as a tacit acknowledgement that widespread legalization of cannabis is inevitable. Steve Rolls, senior policy analyst for the Transform Drug Policy Foundation, said the move shows the UN realizes, quote, the game is up. They aren't going to turn back the tide. While the UN has no authority to enforce such a ban, proponents view it as simply a policy recommendation that jurisdictions can either implement or ignore. That's the Weed Talk News DC report for this week. I'm Phil Adams from Vote Pro Podcast.
New Jersey continues to move forward with their setup of their legal cannabis industry, but it's a slow process. The biggest hurdle is getting approval for retail storefronts in local communities. Here's our New Jersey report from the Blazin' Bakery's Tiramisu Sargente.
I'm Tiramisu from Blazin' Bakery, and this is the New Jersey report for Weed Talk News. Democratic Assemblyman Christopher Tully introduced a bill on Monday, A5921, that would grant an additional 60 days for townships to decide whether they want to opt in or out of adult use cannabis sales. This is a great thing because previously both events, the CRC releasing their regulations and townships having to decide their ordinance, both occurred on August 21st. This did not allow towns to take into consideration the new regulations when they are crafting their ordinances. As a result, many towns were opting out as a safety, and now they will be able to make better informed decisions. Clinton Township Mayor Janice Kovac, who is also the president of the League of Municipalities, the organization which was promoting opt-out clauses, said, "We didn't ask for the bill, but would be supportive of any extension that would give the towns the opportunity to continue to review. However, rather than set a time frame, an extension past the introduction of the rules would be ideal." Since the regulations are still due August 21st, it seems that for now, that is exactly what we're getting. My name's Tiramisu, and this has been the New Jersey Report for Weed Talk News.
Canada continues to set single-month sales records, and in April they did it again. 309 million Canadian dollars was generated throughout that country, with Ontario and British Columbia leading the way. Now it's time for the movers and shakers on Wall Street. The biggest cannabis companies in the world continue to make news all the time, and that's why we look forward to hearing from the Green Market Report's Deborah Borchardt. Deborah?
This is the Weed Talk News business update from the Green Market Report. The Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission fined both Tilt Holdings and Air Strategies last week for over $200,000 each, as both companies try to resolve issues each blamed on previous management. However, they both reached settlements, and that will allow each of them to move forward with plans in the state. Canopy Growth completed its acquisition of the Supreme Cannabis Company in a deal valued at $435 million. Alimentation Couche-Tard, the owners of Circle K, exercised warrants to acquire over 10 million shares of Fire and Flower. Circle K basically now owns 20% of a cannabis company. Australis Capital announced that it is changing its name to Audacious Brands. The company's ticker symbol will remain AUSA on the CSE and AUSAF on the OTC. The company said it will consolidate its brands under the new Audacious banner, and they intend to launch new additional lines. And this has been your business update from the Green Market Report.
One more stop on the Cannabis State-by-State Roundup. It's in the Midwest, and it's in Illinois. That's where unionization of the cannabis workforce continues to grow, and it's where we find Margot Vaselli. Margot?
I'm Margot Vaselli from Margowana with this week's We Talk News Report from Illinois. In this developing story here in Illinois, we're now currently waiting for the governor to sign off on this new cannabis bill. Many experts are indicating that the governor will not sign off on this bill until after the 4th of July. Reason being is that the former application appointing company, KPMG, is still in the process of recalculating their point system. In the meantime, these applicants are still having to pay on their leases and their employees in order to keep their applications in good status. That's the Illinois Report. I'm Margot Vaselli for We Talk News.
And finally tonight, as the great Humphrey Bogart used to say, you played it for her, you can play it for me, Sam. Play as time goes by. That line was from a great black and white classic movie called Casablanca. The movie's title was set in a city in Morocco by that same name, and soon you might be able to sell, buy, and grow weed in Casablanca and the rest of Morocco. Parliament approval is expected this month to open up a legal cannabis industry in that North African country. Unless, of course, they Bogart that opportunity. Ooh, couldn't resist. That's Weed Talk News for this week. I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
Hi, I'm Ben Shire, New England rep for Salient Video Management Systems. Let me tell you what makes us different in the security space. We're your trusted advisors for all your security needs. I know how complicated the regulations are in cannabis, and working with Salient Systems will be the polar opposite of that. I give free consultations and will walk you through every step of the process so that you can get what you need at the price you can afford. We're robust, we're simple and scalable. We're Salient Systems, your solutions to all your security needs. Please contact me at the information below, and I'm looking forward to being your trusted advisor.
Pro Cannabis Media programming is available live and on demand on our Facebook page at Pro Canna Media, on Instagram at Pro Cannabis Media, on LinkedIn also at Pro Cannabis Media, on YouTube and YouTube Live on Pro Cannabis Media, Twitter at Pro Canna Media, and on twitch.tv/Pro Cannabis Media. So like, share, and subscribe to all of our content, newsletters, and shows live or on demand.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.